Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Guys at Maddox. This is Hunter and Steven. Say what up, Steven.
What's up, Steven?
We are back. It is time to do our $100 upgrades to all of these glorious Precon decks coming from the latest set, Tarkir Dragonstorm. There are 5 decks coming from this set, and boy, are all of them spicy. But Steven, you're doing this one and another one, this one being Abzan Armor, correct?
Yeah, Abzan armor. Defenders, baby.
Defenders indeed. Well, Felothar the Steadfast is going to be the upgrade for this video. If you guys wanted to check out the backup upgrade, which is Betor, check the link in the description for our Patreon. We do all of the $100 and $300 backup upgrades exclusively over on our Patreon. But here on YouTube, all the Face Commander upgrades are coming, including this one for Felothar the Steadfast. So before we get started, hit the like button and subscribe to this channel if you haven't done so already, so you're staying up to date with all of the videos we're putting out. But Steven, I keep saying Felothar the Steadfast. Talk to me about this commander.
Yeah, so Felothar, one, a white, a black, and a green. It's a 0/5 legendary creature, human warrior. It says each creature you control assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. And then creatures you control can attack as though they didn't have defender. Also has a beautiful line of text so you can pay 3, tap it, sacrifice another creature, draw cards equal to the sacrificed creature's toughness, then discard cards equal to its power. So super cool card draw engine on the card. Basically, the deck is filled with defenders. We can swing with them, stapled on this card as well. And it's just really awesome, to be quite honest with you. I run an Arcades deck, which is defender based, and this is actually really fun too. So I was kind of excited.
I too run an Arcades Defender deck. The Defender is kind of a very interesting mechanic, and I'm glad they're pushing the boundaries here with another kind of 3-color combination. So I'm excited to see what you do with this. So without further ado, Steven, let's get into the additions that you've put into this deck to make it more spicy. Talk to me about, looks like, a couple of creatures first.
Yeah, well, I saw Tree of Redemption in the deck, and I couldn't just have one tree. So went ahead and started with Tree of Perdition. 3 and a black for a 0/13 creature plant with Defender, and then you can tap it, exchange target opponent's life total with this creature's toughness. So if we get this down early enough, we can basically do 27 damage right off the rip.
Yeah, the trees are very mean. So I'm not surprised you're throwing any other one here.
Yeah, I had to immediately put this in. I love Tree of Perdition. I put it in a couple other decks, and just to make your opponent's life total become 13 pretty early is pretty amazing. There's ways to give your defenders haste in this deck, and it's fun. So, but we'll move on. I also added Wall of Nets. I think Wall of Nets is a really fun one. It's 1 and 2 white. It's for a 0/7 wall. It says Defender. It says at the end of combat, remove from the game all creatures blocked by Wall of Nets. If Wall of Nets leaves play, return to play under their owner's control all creatures removed from the game with Wall of Nets. So essentially, you can swing at me with, a 5/5 or a 6/6 or whatever, but you might not get it back until this leaves play.
You're basically Pac-Man, just eating up everybody's character.
Exactly. And then pretty much one of the last defenders I added is going to be Wall of Shards. This is 1 and a white for a 1/8 defender with flying. As a cumulative upkeep, an opponent gains 1 life. So basically, at the beginning of our upkeep, we're going to put an age counter on this, and it's going to go from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. Now, I understand people might not want to give our opponents life, but this is a defender with flying, and essentially with our commander out, we're doing 8 damage. So I think it kind of makes up for it.
Yeah, not too bad.
Yeah, it's really tough because a lot of times, especially in this set, we're going to be facing a lot of flyers. So I kind of wanted something to be able to defend that. So Wall of Shards was a great include here.
Mm.
Bedrock Tortoise is up next. This is 3 and a green for a 0/6 creature turtle. It says as long as it's your turn, creatures you control have hexproof. Don't touch my stuff. I don't want you to. And then each creature you control with toughness greater than its power assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. So a little backup just in case our defender commander might not be on the field. I think Bedrock Tortoise was a pretty good include here.
Definitely. The tortoise has a spot here. Very welcome addition.
Yep. And then the last creature I added is Sapling of Kolfanor. It is 3 hybrid black green for a 2/5 legendary creature Treefolk Shaman. It also has Indestructible, and then whenever Sapling of Kolfanor attacks, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a creature card, you gain life equal to that card's toughness. You lose life equal to its power, then put it into your hand. Really cool. 2/5 with indestructible. It can attack no matter what, which is really cool. Doesn't have that defender text on there. And then essentially card draw.
Card draw. Card draw wins games.
Card draw does win games.
You're not going to be losing a lot of life. You're going to be gaining them way more than you lose.
Yeah, tons of huge booties and not a lot of front. So there's that.
There is that. That looks like all of the creatures that you're throwing in here. I do see a couple of instants. Talk to me about these ones.
Yeah, so you know me, I love my combat tricks, and you can't have a combat trick without a Chroma's Will, at least in my mind. So 3 and a white for an instant. You can choose one, or if you control your commander when you cast this, you may choose both. Creatures you control gain flying, vigilance, and double strike until end of turn. And then the other mode is creatures you control gain lifelink, indestructible, and protection from each color until end of turn. The double strike, the flying, the vigilance, the lifelink, the indestructible, protection. All the words speak to me.
All of the words do speak to me as well. Those are that Chroma's Will is a fun finisher, or just if you need it, it can be a defense card as well.
Yeah, I mean, being able to hold this as a defensive spell too, giving your stuff indestructible, somebody who's playing a board wipe, is pretty solid. But speaking of board wipes, I did add 2 more cards to this just in case. I added Eerie Interlude. This is 2 and a white for an instant. It says exile any number of target creatures you control, return those cards to the battlefield under their owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. So there are some ETB triggers for some of these cards, so I think that is a good include for that. But also, if somebody does cast something that is going to wipe the entire board, you don't need them to come back immediately. This is a really good include to just kind of make sure your stuff stays perfectly safe.
True. Also, kind of a pseudo vigilance if you needed it to.
Mm-hmm. Very true. And then also we have Heroic Intervention, great staple card in green. I just can't really speak enough about it. It is 1 in a green. It says permanents you control gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. Just again, I said it before, say it again. Don't touch my stuff.
Don't touch my stuff. I'm in the same boat. Leave my things alone. But that looks like all the instants. Going back to the permanent apartment, I got an artifact. What is this?
Yeah. I did add an artifact, and obviously we're playing with defenders. And what's one of the best things you can play with as a defender? Usually you're playing against creatures that are swinging at you with some hefty damage. Maybe they'll get in one time, but with Meekstone, they probably won't. So Meekstone is 1 mana. It's an artifact. Creatures with power 3 or greater don't untap during their controller's untap steps. Don't swing at me. Or, you could swing at somebody else, and it's still 1 untap. So I love Meekstone. It's fantastic.
True. Meekstone is in my Arcades deck, and boy, it pulls its weight. I can see it pulling weight here as well. Moving on to the enchantments, we got 3.
Yeah, I added a really fun one. I kind of did some digging and I saw a really cool enchantment, and it kind of spoke to me. And it said, it's not fair that only I get to play with great defenders. So you should play with defenders too. So Orification was the first one I added. It is 2 and 2 white. It says, whenever a creature deals damage to you, put a gold counter on it. Each creature with a gold counter on it is a wall in addition to its other types. Walls can't attack. When Orification leaves play, remove all gold counters from all creatures. Uh, Great card.
Yeah. You're shutting everybody off. That's a fun one.
Yeah, I don't know about all the other Precon decks, but I don't know if they have defender enablers.
Well,
So,
you just said, and wall.
yep. So you can swing at me. I'll allow it, but not again. I added Smile at Death as well. This is 3 and 2 white. It says at the beginning of your upkeep, return up to 2 target creature cards with power 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Put a +1/+1 counter on each of those creatures. This is one of the new cards from this set. I really wanted to add something new, and this card spoke to me. It smiled at me, and I'm here for it.
Yeah, I can see why it's going in here. Very good.
Yeah, I mean, 5 mana for an enchantment is a pretty strong, but at the same time, this is pretty insane. Play this. Worst case, you have to block. Your creatures die. Just bring them back. Put those counters on them. Then their booties get bigger, and then you get to hit them people for more.
Yeah.
So that's really good. And then speaking of hitting people for more, Stone Skin was an automatic include in this deck. It is 2 and a white for a enchantment aura with flash. It says enchant creature, and then enchanted creature gets +0/+10.
Quick, easy to the point. Just add some more booty.
Yeah, a lot of booty for sure. So if you're swinging with something and your opponent's just like, oh, it's a 0/6, I can take 6 this time. No, it's going to be 16.
And flashed in. Yeah, it's actually 16. Sorry.
Yeah, no, Stone Skin. Like I said earlier, I love combat tricks, and this is a fun one in this deck.
Mm-hmm. And finally, we like to touch these mana bases because right out of the deck, sometimes the mana bases are not that great in Precon. So looks like you are adding a couple of lands. What are we throwing in?
Yeah, so a lot of tap lands in this deck. I wanted to try and get rid of those, so I did add both the Verges for our colors here. So Bleachbone Verge, and then also Wastewood Verge. Bleachbone Verge taps for a black, and then if you control a plains or a swamp, it'll also tap for a plains. Wastewood Verge taps for a forest, but if you control a swamp or a forest, it'll tap for a black. I also added Bountiful Promenade because I wanted a cool bond land in here. This deck is primarily green and white with a splash of black, so I kind of wanted to add those colors in a little bit more. And then also Vault of Champions as another bond land taps for a white and a black as well.
Cool. I like all of the lands that you threw in. And is that it? Is that all the additions to this uh, Abzan armor?
Yeah, that'll be all the additions to the Abzan armored deck. I love them.
Okay. Well, now is the time that's a little bit sad. We have to make room for all of those awesome additions, and sometimes it's sad to say goodbye to some of these cards from the Precon, but let's talk about them. What are we removing to make room?
Yeah, we'll go ahead and get it out of the way first. So Baator Ancestor's Voice was removed from this precon. The backup commander is cool. There's like a sub lifelink theme in this deck, but it's not like super strong. So I went ahead and did away with that. I went ahead and just stuck with defenders and just doing a bunch of stuff like that. But Baator Ancestor's Voice is two, a white, a black, and a green for a 3/5 legendary creature spirit dragon. It's got flying and lifelink. At the beginning of your end step, put a number of +1/+1 counters on up to one other target creature you control, equal to the amount of life you gain this turn, and then return up to one target creature card with mana value less than or equal to the amount of life you lost this turn from your graveyard to the battlefield. There was not a ton of life loss in this deck, so the backup doesn't really make sense unless you're upgrading it for that specific reason. So for that, I kind of just got rid of it. I mean, it's a cool card. Flying Lifelink is nice with the evasion, but it just doesn't make sense in this deck, to be quite honest.
Yeah, with all of these precons were finally announced, and you got to see the face commander and the backup commander. Every single one were pretty much interchangeable, except this deck. All four of us on the channel here thought that was kind of odd how just like different the face and the backup is in this specific deck comparatively to the other four. But very easy to cut because it just doesn't work.
Yeah, it's just crazy to me because they did also, show the other Baator, which would have made perfect sense in this deck. With it caring about toughness on your board at the end of the turn. So I don't understand why this was the one they decided to put in the deck.
Yeah, maybe they made, like I said, there's a main version and the backup version also in all of the main sets. So maybe they made two different versions of each Baator and Felothar, and then they were just like, we should just throw these ones as the precon one, keep these ones in the main set, and then they just kind of dropped the ball on this one.
Yeah, pretty hard. But we won't dwell on the past. We'll go ahead and move on. So I did also get rid of Rock's Faithmender. This is 3 and a white for a 1/5 creature Rhino Monk. It's got lifelink, and then it says if you would gain life, you gain twice that much life instead. Again, like I said earlier, I kind of did away with the lifelink theme in this deck. Although gaining life is cool, I feel like we're going to have enough booty on the board to where we don't really have to worry about our life too much. So this being a 4-drop, I just kind of wanted to get rid of it. Doesn't have the defender. It does have the big booty, which kind of helps out with some of the other themes in the deck with it having greater toughness rather than power. But again, 4-drop, I like to keep my decks a little bit low on the CMC, so this was chucked right out.
Yeah, it makes sense. Your commander doesn't really care about life gain, so
Moving on to Balden Century Herdmaster. This is 4 and 2 white for a 0/7 legendary creature human warrior. During your turn, each creature assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. And then whenever Baldwin attacks, up to 100 target creatures each get +0/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of cards in your hand. So this was kind of a tough cut. Again, I think it's mainly because of the CMC of this card. It does do the thing where if our commander's not on the field, this will help us, but 6 mana is a bit aggressive for this card. I do like the fact that I can also have all of our creatures' toughness increase depending on the size of our hand. Granted, it's just a few extra hoops. Our commander does let us sack things in order to draw a bunch of cards. If I was going to put one back in, this would be it. But again, I like lower CMC, and I kind of just want to get the ball rolling that way.
And hey, that cap of just only 100 of your creatures, it's kind of rough too.
Yeah, it's not enough, to be quite honest with you. I think if it would have said like 120, maybe, but 100 is not enough.
Yeah, I get why you're cutting this one here. Talk to me. Looks like a couple of more creatures.
Yeah, let's move on to the next three that we're getting rid of out of the deck. This is Sadric's Silver Quilt. This is 3, a white and a black for a 2/5 legendary creature Elder Dragon. It's got flying and double strike. And at the beginning of combat on your turn, you may choose 2. Each mode must target a different player. Target player creates a 2/1 white and black Inkling creature token with flying. Target player draws a card and loses 1 life. And target player puts a +1/+1 counter on each creature they control. I, you know, Even like back then when this card was first released, I didn't understand why people liked it so much. It really, you're helping yourself with something and then you're giving your opponent something great. If this had like a negative outlook on it, then maybe it'd be fun. But just being able to help our opponents out, just I did not want to do that.
Yeah, I don't want to help my opponents either. So easy cut, in my opinion.
Yeah. Shalai Voice of Plenty was a difficult cut, I'll be honest with you. It is 3 and a white for a 3/4 legendary creature angel. Flying, you, planeswalkers you control, and other creatures you control have hexproof. And you can also pay 4 and 2 green, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. I put the turtle in, which gives all of our creatures hexproof on our turn. Granted, it's not throughout the whole thing, but I think the turtle does a little bit better of a job than Shalai. But, teach their own. Feel free to kind of put it back in if you like, but in my deck, I just didn't really want it. Towering Titan is up next for 4 and 2 green. It's a 0/0 creature giant. This creature enters with X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is the total toughness of other creatures you control. You can also sacrifice a creature with Defender. All creatures gain trample until end of turn. It's a cool effect. It's like a Craterhoof Behemoth. Just throw Craterhoof in there if you want. But for me, at least, I think that we're doing just fine with the cards we added, the combat tricks, and all that. So 6 mana, get out of here.
Get it gone. I can see the other cut, and I'm seeing 3 more creatures.
Yep, Wakestone Gargoyle is up next. 3 and a white for a 3/4 Defender flying. It has 1 and a white creatures you control with Defender can attack this turn as though they didn't have Defender. We have enough effects like this in the deck, and I didn't want one that was just a 4 mana, 3/4 flyer. We added the Wall of Shards, so I think that'll just be fine enough. It's a 1/8, so it's a little bit better. Wall of Limbs is up next. This is 2 and a black for a 0/3 creature zombie wall. I know what you're thinking. Steven, you love zombies. Why is a zombie getting kicked out of a deck? Well, it's a defender, and then whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on it. And then you can pay 5 and 2 black, sacrifice it. Target player loses X life, where X is this creature's power.
Hmm.
Again, I kind of did away with the life gain. Didn't really make much sense. If this said each opponent, I probably would have considered putting it in, but even then, paying 7 mana for this is a bit aggressive. I do like the fact that it's at instant speed, but it being a 0/3 and the life gain kind of going away, just didn't really make much sense to keep it in.
I get that. It's like you said, you're getting rid of the life gain. This is not going to gain any life or gain any counters because you're not getting the life.
Yep. And then the last creature I removed is Wall of Reverence, which makes this deck seem very odd for this to be included. It is 3 and a white for a 1/6 defender with flying, and then at the beginning of your end step, you may gain life equal to the power of target creature you control. This deck is filled with a bunch of defenders and walls and high toughness creatures and kind of low power creatures. So this coming in at 4 mana and us maybe gaining 2 life, 3 life, just I don't get it.
Yeah, this more life gain that you just don't care about. So get it out of the deck. We're not doing
Yeah,
that
now
anymore.
no, not anymore. But if you tune over to our Patreon, I'll explain why this is in the Baitor $100 backup.
Yeah, down in the description. But that is all of the creatures. Looks like one artifact also getting removed. What is this one artifact?
Yeah, weird artifact in this deck. This is Staff of Completion. It's 3 mana. You can pay 1 life, destroy target permanent you own. Pay 2 life, add a mana of any color. Pay 3 life, proliferate. Pay 4 life, draw a card, and then you can pay 5 and untap this artifact. If we're playing Baitor and we want to lose life, perfect card. This is amazing for this deck. But in a deck where we don't want to lose life for no reason. I don't want to pay 4 life to draw a card when I can just pay 3 mana, sack a creature, and then just draw a bunch of cards.
Yeah. Stopping completion is good in certain decks. I'm not certain for this deck.
Well put.
But, Steven, your favorite thing to do is to remove more lands than you add. And I'm seeing that you've done it again. So let's go ahead and jump straight into the land removals. What are we taking out?
Yeah, call me nothing but dependable. You know what I mean? I did add 4 lands. I took 6 out. So I took out probably less than I normally would have, to be quite honest with you. But this deck is, even though it runs small with the ads and the, removals I did, I still kind of like to run a little bit around like 36 lands. So Evolving Wilds is gone. We have another land in there that kind of helps search for a basic of a specific type. So this is just, I mean, it just should be cut from every deck, to be honest with you. Sungrass Prairie is gone as well. Not quite a filter land, basically a filter land. I don't like these at all. The mental math for me doesn't check. So I just don't want to do that too much. And then a weird removal. I understand a lot of people might be kind of weirded out by this, but Path of Ancestry is gone. It enters the battlefield tapped, so it's slow. I understand it fixes the color mana, but there aren't a lot of human warriors in this deck. So the scry didn't really make much sense for me anymore. So I went ahead and just cut it. I kind of wanted to stick with as many untapped lands as possible. So with that being said, this one is gone. The next 3 should be removed from every deck. And to be quite honest with you, I kind of wish they were removed from Magic the Gathering in general. Is the Temple set. So Temple of Plenty, Temple of Milady, tip my hat, and then Temple of Silence. They all enter the battlefield tapped. When they enter, you scry one, put the Surveil lands in. They're much better, much, much better. But obviously, the Surveil lands are a little bit more expensive, so they're not in this upgrade. But the Temple of Plenty will tap for a green or a white. Temple of Milady will tap for a black and a green. And then Temple of Silence will tap for a white or a black.
We all know Malady, but the inside joke is definitely Milady. Um,
Milady.
yeah, I understand why these are all cut. Tap lands are the worst. Coming in
Yes.
slow. Not a fan of coming in slow. So they are gone. But Steven, is that going to do it? Is that all of the additions and cuts from Abzan Armor?
That is all the additions and cuts, my friend.
Okay, so I have a question for you, Steven. We gave you $100 to upgrade this deck. What is the amount of money you spent on all the additions?
Well, believe it or not, walls are cheap. So actually came under budget. It came about 98.75 for this deck at the time of recording. Now, obviously, Smile at Death is still considered, pre-release. So price might go down a little bit. So yeah, save yourself some extra money. Throw something else in. Throw one of those Surveil lands in.
There you go. Um, but yeah, I'm very excited to see this deck in action. You guys want to stay tuned for that, so stay subscribed. Also, you're gonna not want to miss the $300 upgrade when Steven comes out with that $300 upgrade. But Steven, before we wrap things up, I want to ask: do you have any final thoughts on Felothar the Steadfast before we move on?
Yeah, I mean, I like I said earlier in the video, I loved my Arcades deck. I think walls are really fun. This kind of takes it into a different level. Whereas Arcades lets you draw one card when a wall comes in. This lets you draw as big as that bug gets. And there's ways to do sweet combat tricks in this deck. And it's really fun. You essentially build this giant wall in front of you where your opponents can't really get past. And it's really sweet to kind of just sit there and watch your friends play Magic. And then when it's your time to shine, you swing.
Yeah, I can see it, and we always say it. Card draw wins games, right, Steven?
100%. Yep.
And that's what Felothar does. So, if you guys liked that video, hit the like button to let us know that you guys liked this one. Comment down below. You guys agree with all these additions that Steven did? Maybe there's something that Steven missed. Maybe there's something you disagreed with. Comment down below. Always interested in hearing your guys' opinions. Also, once again, stay subscribed to the channel so you're not missing out on all the cool content we're putting out all the time. And on the screen right now, those are all of our Patreon subscribers. Once again, if you guys wanted to check out what they're seeing, that includes the backup. That's right. Don't forget, Betor over right now on our Patreon. Go check that out and how Steven built that deck with the $100 in mind. Link in the description below. take a look, consider subscribing. And a very special shout out to our indestructible tier. You guys are awesome, starting with Daryl Tripp,
Demarion Turner,
Doc Jerome,
Jimmy Ward,
Kevo,
Larry Killian,
Robert Myatt,
Thrifty PSGR,
Tim K.
Ryder Cole.
You guys are awesome. Appreciate every single one of you. And until the next video, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Peace.
I miss you.